Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the How to Film Weddings podcast. My name is Nick Miller. Today, I am doing this episode by myself. Well, I have a guest. John just isn't here, so hopefully that is okay with you. I am joined by the very talented Hunter Floyd of Hunter Floyd Films. He's based out of Texas, Austin, New Brunswick, I think, area, and recently moved from Chicago a couple years ago into that area, but his work is incredible. He's been featured on our How to Film Weddings Instagram, but I love the aesthetic, the vibe that he does. He does a really good job of mixing that, upbeat party, but also some kind of like cinematic piano. It's really incredible. His work is great. We chatted a lot about, building relationships and just connecting with other people and that kind of stuff, along with what he's thinking about with the editing stuff. So I'm very excited about this week's episode. I've really looked up to him and his work for quite a while, and I'm excited to have him on. So let's go ahead and jump into this week's episode of the podcast. It seems like there are new cameras and equipment coming out all of the time. It gets increasingly confusing and the FOMO is real. John and I have been preaching for years that the best way to try out new gear is to rent before you buy. There is only one place that we recommend when it comes to renting, and that is our friends over at Lens Rentals. Lens Rentals is the premier source for renting not only camera equipment, but lenses, drones, projectors, and more. Do you have a big project coming up and you really need to wow your couple? Wanting to test out the newest camera before you drop thousands on it? You need Lens Rentals. My favorite thing is that if I love something I rent, I can keep it. They apply a portion of the rental fee to the purchase price, and within a few simple clicks, the gear is mine. So head over to howtofilmweddings.com/lensrentals and use promo code HTFW15 at checkout for 15% off of your order. Lens Rentals, the only place we recommend renting. Well, Hunter, welcome to the How to Film Weddings podcast today. How are you doing?
Doing well. Sweltering. I live in a small town in Texas, so it's starting to get super hot. Good. Had a wedding last weekend. My one and only local wedding. And, I have two more later this year. And then I'll be in Sedona next week. So that'll be exciting. Or this week.
Man,
Don't
sound
send
like
this to my client.
Yeah, you sound like me here. My wife and I with Wild Oak Films, we have half of a local wedding this year. Like they're getting married in Dallas and having a reception here in Wichita, and we're doing both. And like that's our only thing that we're shooting in Wichita all year. But everywhere else, closest thing is 3 hours in Kansas City. Like we're not local at all anymore.
Is the rest of the wedding in Dallas?
Yeah, so they're doing the whole wedding in Dallas, and then they're having a reception here. I'm not sure. The planner is a friend of ours, and she's like, "Hey, what would it cost you to hire you? This is what's going on." I'm like, "Okay." So we're doing it, but yeah.
$1 million. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. Where in Texas are you located?
So I live, as of COVID era, in a small town called New Braunfels. It's right between Austin and San Antonio. It's a sick German town. We got 2 rivers. People come here, they float the rivers, get really drunk, or you listen to country music. It's great. We came down here at the beginning of COVID. I built my business in Chicago, which is an amazing place for the wedding industry, and just a beautiful place in general. And I still probably shoot 25% of my weddings in Chicago, just because after you build relationships, places and things like that, that's a big part of it and an important part of it. But now I live in a small town in Texas. I don't really, if you look at my Instagram, if you look at my website, I don't put a location. I get inquiries from everywhere, and that's part of the plan. If I had to shoot at the same venue, no matter how cool it was, maybe in Hawaii, I could shoot at the same venue. But, no matter how cool it was, at some point, I'm going to be bored out of my mind. Yeah. So, anyway.
Yeah, that's what my wife, Jen, she says all the time.
I live in Texas, Nick.
Yeah, okay, Texas. Just the whole place.
I'm a rambler, so you're going to have to,
I'll have to Yeah, I'll have to reel you back in. Yeah, that's one thing that my wife Jen says about all the traveling that we do. She's like, every time I get kind of, man, it'd be nice to shoot at home. It'd be nice to sleep in our own bed or, whatever. But she's like, I would get so bored like shooting at the same, because we would be at like the same probably 4 or 5 venues locally. And she's like, I think I just get too bored with it. So I feel you. I feel you on that.
Wichita Country Club.
Yeah. Shot there that was the Wichita Country Club was our last local wedding that we actually shot.
I know. I was there. No, I'm kidding.
You were that. Yeah. That's fun. So, I thought that you were, I would have guessed Chicago, and that's probably when I found you. Either you still lived in Chicago and then you moved and you're just, traveling back there all the time. So why don't you, real quick, introduce yourself, as, well, you kind of did, but, what I'm going to just start this over. Blake, you're probably going to keep this in here because that's just how we roll on this podcast whenever I start talking and it doesn't go where I want it to. But Hunter, you are from Chicago. You're now in Austin-ish area, Texas, between Austin and San Antonio. Is that right? San Antonio? Is that what you said?
New Braunfels. Yeah, that's perfect. You're killing it, dude.
That area, I am on top of this. This is what happens. This is what happens whenever John says, "Nick, you take charge of the podcast," and I don't know where I'm going with it.
He said you weren't drinking beers.
Right, and I'm not. So, why don't you just kind of give us a quick story of Hunter Floyd Films and kind of how you got into the wedding industry and what maybe led you into doing all this destination work, because I think people find that interesting.
Oh my God. Well, reel me in at any time here. So I am 33. My name's Hunter. Like you said, man, I started my business in 2018 back in Chicago, and I didn't know what I was doing with my life. I worked for churches and I was a youth pastor for about 6-7 years. I went to school in Virginia, worked in Vegas, worked for a big mega church up in Chicago area, and then decided like at 27 that like that just wasn't for me, and kind of had like this quarter life crisis and moved in with my parents and tried to figure out what to do with my life, like working at TGI Fridays, And then after 3 months of that, I was like, no way. I found a camera, started taking pictures. I got hired by a local studio and they taught me photography, wedding photography, and then they needed a videographer. This is all in the span of like 4 to 5 months. Okay. And my wife, I'm actually I work from my couch. Like I don't have these cool, I do not have like a cool work studio space. I just like work from my couch. And I'm in my wife's studio. She owns a Pilates studio and she wanted to move back to Chicago. She's from that area. And I was like, you know what? Like, I think I can do this wedding video stuff on my own. And so I found a wedding on Craigslist, on Thumbtack. This was early 2018. Took those weddings for, $400 or $500. And then that morphed into word of mouth, meeting people in Chicago, referrals, becoming friends with planners and photographers, working that game, and then building my business to a point to where come to COVID, like 2020, I'm booking weddings. I'm getting a couple just through like crazy opportunities and taking advantage of opportunities, doing weddings in Ireland and other cool places. And then 2020, something just happened. And I just, I don't want to say something just happened. My wife gets on to me about this. I always say I'm lucky, but that's not the truth. Like it's the convergence of preparation in a lot of things, but just doing something a little bit different, putting it out on Instagram. I'm now at a place in my business where I live here in Texas, and then I fly to probably 85% of my weddings. And they're everywhere from Sedona next weekend, New Hampshire at the beginning of the year, Scottsdale. I just got back from Ireland and Napa, did one in Austin. I'll be in Europe this July. So like all that cool stuff. And I'm finally at a point to where I'm getting paid properly to do those things, which is part of the process as well. And that's really freaking cool. I mean, I love it. It's awesome. I get a lot of people who just reach out because they want something different, or they want something that is encompassing a wedding celebration rather than just the wedding day, if that makes sense. And that's kind of where that's all been built from. And that's kind of where I'm at now. So.
Yeah, that's so cool. And so you've been doing this for, 5 years. And, one of the things that whenever I found your work, whenever that was a year and a half, something ago, So I really want to spend a little bit of time later in the podcast, kind of talking about what you're doing with your editing and how fun that is, and you're doing stuff coming at it a little bit differently. But you mentioned it a little bit ago, and I think that one of the things that you have really done in your business is taking advantage of these opportunities that are in front of you. I know that, kind of a lot of the educator people in our space are going to say, never do anything for free, or, don't just give away your work, or, any of that kind of stuff. But if it's attached to the right project, you might want to say yes to something that normally you would say no to. So why don't you talk a little bit about some of the opportunities that have been set before you and you saying yes, and what that has taken you now, 2 or 3 years down the road?
I got a really good friend in New Jersey, New York area, who does like consistent weddings, makes great money, all in the same places. And he's kind of, every time I go somewhere, he like DMs me. He's like, how much did you get paid for this? He's always trying to investigate and see if I'm cheating the game or not. And in the beginning, like I did, you know what I mean? Like I shot a wedding outside of Chicago, and I'm getting buddy with the groom and his groomsmen. And one of the girls tells me, oh, so-and-so's getting married in Ireland later this year. This would have been late 2018. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, really? And so I found them during dinner. I was like, oh my gosh, I heard you guys are getting married in Ireland. That's so cool. Not to be that guy, but if you want someone to do video, just let me know. And like, we changed emails. They actually followed up with me. And I maybe went to Ireland for $3,500 and shot that wedding. And like, I didn't make any money after taxes, and not that I even knew what to do about taxes back then or now. And you know what I mean? And I, because every day I'm like there, I'm at the pub, buying people drinks, gin and tonics, whatever, and having a great time. But that wedding rolled into the next wedding, into the next wedding. And it's this and now to where now, like my last 5 weddings, no matter where they were, have been double-digit weddings. And, that's like my bookings, like I start between 7 and like 8.5, depending on where it's at. And that just includes like getting there and like a 3 to 5 minute film. And that's it. Mm-hmm. And then it's just about like giving more and more money on the table from there. And a lot of, and still my philosophy, like even when I'm taking weddings for double digits, like whether it's in Chicago or here, for $11, $12, $15,000, I would still take a wedding for 6 or 7 if it was the right place or the right people or the right time. And like, I'm a big believer in that. I'm a big believer in like that if something lines up with what you want or where you want to be, that it's worth taking a bit of a hit from the money side. I mean, if you're like, you got to pay your bills, you have 10 kids. Sorry, something just popped up. Then you got to do what you got to do. But Absolutely. At the end of the day, like if you want to invest in where you want to go, then there's nothing wrong. Like, I mean, I did a lot of styled shoots when I was coming up for free. Like I would give things away to people for free. And I know that people aren't always about that. But to me, like giving something to somebody, they want nothing but to return that favor in some way. Or, you know what I mean? So I really believe in that. Like if there's something that you want, there's nothing wrong with finding that balance of, don't undervalue yourself. But Absolutely. Still find that balance. If there's something you really want to do, like don't be afraid to do it. And don't feel like, oh, I can't believe I did this for that much. Because I promise you, when you're there having the time of your life, like you're not going to feel that way. It's when you take the wedding undervalued at the country club, you're going to feel that way.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with shooting at country clubs.
There is not. I think that there's just kind of the stigma around, that kind of thing. I feel like this topic has been kind of coming up over the last 2 weeks with our interviews, but it's just on how you view it, right? You're almost thinking, well, I really want to start doing destination work, or I want to do international destination work, or, you fill in the blank, whatever it is that you want to do, but how do I get into that? And, for you to spend marketing dollars to get your name in Ireland and like get a following or get like, that's not super easy. But if you have someone going over there and you're like, okay, listen, for basically just cover my cost of getting over there, I'll film it and you get me back, like that'll be fine. Like that's all I need. Like what is that going to do for your business? And now like that's the biggest thing. I talk to brides all the time, and we're on Wild Oak Films, we're on the destination side too, and people are like, well, are you worried that you've never shot at this venue before? Like, are you worried that you've never shoot here? And I'm like,
If I get one more email about a walkthrough, I swear to God.
Right. Yeah. But it's one of those things that for, whatever, I mean, that makes people feel, safe, oh, you've shot there before. That's great. That sort of thing. But especially when it comes to destination or travel stuff, it's how do you get into that work if you've never done that work, and it's kind of, okay, well, if I'm going to do it, then maybe I have to do something for free or I have to do something for cheap, just so I can get it on my resume. But I love that you have taken that, like, yeah, I did that for $3,500, but now I'm charging 4 times that or 5 times that number, just for the work that I'm doing. And I don't, and that you wouldn't have gotten to where you are today if you wouldn't have taken some of those steps. So I think it's just a mind shift. And yes, every business is different. Every company is different. Every person is different. And so maybe you literally can't afford to do it for that cheap and be away from your family or whatever for a week, and we understand that. But if you have these opportunities in front of you, like what's the future going to happen by you doing that? So that's a really cool thing. And I bet just doing that is really one of those things that has really skyrocketed all of this destination stuff for you.
Oh, for sure. Quick word of advice to anybody who wants to do that. Something I did that really helped out was anytime I travel somewhere, so like I had a wedding in Napa, or like I went to, let's say my parents took me to Disneyland or something. If there's a place I know I want to shoot, and I'd literally be willing to shoot anywhere. Like 2019, I shot a wedding in Napa, and you have to fly into San Francisco. And so I DM'd photographers, I hashtag aesthetic fashion, whatever, found people who looked good, DM'd them, say, hey, like free video photo sesh, I'll give you the material. Just let me shoot you a little bit. And like I found people to do that with every time I go somewhere. Not so much lately because I'm getting lazier and I have the work coming, but back then I would do it a lot. And I would do these shoots and I would just put it on there. I might put like $20 into Instagram. I would tag it, of course, but then like $20 into Instagram marketing with like, Christian Louis Vuitton, first class travel, wine, whatever. And you'd start getting hits on that. And so it's just about like being creative and finding ways to find that content, even if it's a family vacation. You know what I mean? So. Yeah,
I think that we also have, I don't know, like, I'm going out there to the family vacation. So I'm not going out there for weddings. So that's like dishonest, or that's, not authentic, or, like people have these thoughts, but it doesn't really matter. I know several photographers in my local market that are absolutely like the hot commodity in town. And I know that they built their business on just doing all these workshops and styled shoots. Like that's what they did. And they showed up, and their work was really, really good. And that kind of opened the door for them to start doing those weddings. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with going out there, shooting in different places. And so you're showing off the travel. Whoops, hit that. You're showing off the travel, and you are, putting it out there that you like to do these things. I can also tell that one thing that you are good at is, just connecting with people and being relational with people and that sort of stuff. So how has you being so like relational with people helped you in, connecting with people in different places, or, whatever, so that you can do these kind of shoots, or so that you can grow your business?
I think, it's funny, like when people reach out to me and they want to talk about making wedding films, like I feel very technically deficient. Like even there's some video that like you said about how to set all this up. And you're like, if you're a video person, like disregard. I'm like, no, like I need to listen to this. I'm sure I understand. Like, I don't know how to make it look good, And I just put myself on a white wall. And, like that, I feel very behind in that. But what I do feel like, which isn't as sexy, what I do feel like I'm good at is reading, is the soft skills. It's talking to people. It's reading a room. It's knowing when and how to ask for portraits and something extra and try to get something more out of a couple or get them to be open. And, like when I started out, I had some bad experiences with photographers or planners, but I can honestly say in the last 2.5 years, like almost every experience, even if the person's an a-hole, like I've had a great experience with them. And I think a big part of this industry, like I'm so thankful that in the last year and a half, I've kind of gotten away from needing the gatekeepers of planners to make good money at weddings. I mean, nothing against planners. I love them to death. But when you're reliant on that, you have to put on a good face. You have to become the one, and you don't want to seem like, oh, please put me on your list. And so I think being able to work those relationships is so important. Like being able to not be upset if your photographer comes in and is like old school editorial, flashing everything from the hotel room to the outdoor portraits. Like you got to be chill with that, and you got to be comfortable and still compliment them on what they're doing and understanding that they just want everything to look consistent. And then coming to them with that graciousness and being their friend. And if you're friends with somebody, I mean, I promise I don't like just manipulate everybody, but like if you're friends and friendly with somebody, like they want to work with you more. Yeah. And I feel like that has been it's not sexy as like, get this camera and this Leica M lens and get that character in that shot, baby. But it is, to me, making a wedding film is only 50% of me selling what I do. The rest of it is the interaction, selling the interaction with the couple. If I've had a great interaction with a couple, I feel like I've already won. Like they're going to love their film, even if it's shitty. No, clients, please don't listen to this. But even if I send something that is like 60% good and they had a great reaction with me or experience with me, they're going to love it even more. Yeah. All these diesel trucks out here. And that to me is so important to give them that experience.
Yeah,
I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yes, it absolutely does. One of the things that we strive to do in our business, and John and I have shared a bunch on the podcast, is, make your couples, make the vendors that you work with fall in love with your work before they even see a frame of it, before they even see anything of it. And if you are building a relationship, like my favorite comment from people is whenever they come up to me at the restaurant, you guys have done such a great job today. And my thought every time is like, how do you know? I might not even have a memory card in here. Like you don't know, but how we are treating other people, how we are behaving, how we are handling ourselves. We are just putting off this vibe of, I know what I'm doing and I'm nice and I'm enjoyable to be around. And so we're making them fall in love with the work that we're going to do before we even show them anything. And another thing that I'm kind of picking up on as you're talking through this is you just being like a relational person and talking with others. Like you're leaning into your strengths. You're like, I don't know much about cameras and I'm not technical or whatever, but I do know how to talk to people and lean into that stuff. And you're able to lean into that a lot more, which plays into your strengths. And so people are going to hire you. And there are other people that are like, oh, I'm not relational at all. That's not my thing, but I can, basically tell you the whole user manual of this camera and, why you should be shooting in this light and with this ISO and, all these other things. And you're just like, okay, good. We're all good at, we have different strengths. And
I mean, I don't even use an ND filter. So I mean,
That's okay.
I just lost so many people listening to this. But, and to that point, we don't have to get into editing yet, but and I'm not saying that people who are uber technical don't do this, but I do feel like a lot of what I do is, I hate using these kind of words, but like finding a vibe, feeling a vibe in my edit, feeling a vibe with my couple. And like so much of that I feel like is a feeling. Like it's not something I can send someone to Columbia Film School and they may not know how to edit soul or vibe or a feeling as opposed to just doing it correctly, like, the right shots and the right edits. And I feel like that bleeds so much, whether it's being open, and like a big part of my journey has been finding mentors and listening to them and being open to change and learn from them. And then also for myself, just being open-handed with everyone I meet in the industry and trying to be a teammate as opposed to just like, oh, we're in our separate lanes. And I loved what you were saying about, they love my wedding films because even though they've never watched them. And I think that's so powerful. And it's so true, man. Like I have planners reach out to me all the time because somebody said something to them and they've never watched any of my stuff. And And it's awesome. It's awesome when that happens. So.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we are coming up. We've been chatting for a little bit here. So we're going to hop on over to a break. And then when we come back, we're going to chat more with Mr. Hunter Floyd.
Nick and I have to tell you about one of our favorite places to upload our wedding films, and that is Love Stories TV. Love Stories TV is one of the best free resources for us wedding filmmakers. The best part is they are bringing the couples to us. All we have to do is upload our films and we are good to go. Upload unlimited wedding films to your completely free business page. Setup is easy and your films can be live in just minutes. Now is the perfect time to start uploading to Love Stories TV. So head on over to howtofilmweddings.com/lovestoriestv to check out all of the details and see how Love Stories TV is giving away $10,000 in cash to wedding filmmakers just like you. That's howtofilmweddings.com/lovestoriestv to start uploading and connecting with the right couples today.
Hi, it's Michael from Wedditor. We want to thank everyone for the incredible support we've received since sponsoring How to Film Weddings. Yes, we've had some growing pains, but we've had far more wins. And we're doing something that's never been done. We're a remote team of over 50 editors in 10 countries. I often joke that we're as much a logistics company as we are a creative company. Right now, demand is off the charts. And we don't just say yes to everyone and scramble to figure it out. That's why we're asking you to help us help more of you. In short, we're looking for more talented wedditors. Part-time or full-time, work from where you want, when you want, as long as you hit deadlines and deliver quality. It's a chance to get paid while growing as an editor. Our project managers work with you, explaining why something feels right or doesn't, because there's always a reason. If you're interested, we'd love to hear from you. Go to wedditor.com/editor and fill out our form.
All right, we are back from break, and you were talking about the vibe and the aesthetic and that kind of stuff, and kind of your editing process. And I want to dive more into that. But before I do, I wanted to touch a little bit on being different and knowing your people and what it is that you need to capture. So, what have you kind of honed in on, or what's some of the stuff that you're really thinking of to kind of keep in that mind of, doing stuff a little bit different, or, knowing the people you want to work with, or exactly what you need to capture, that sort of stuff. So what are you thinking about as you're filming to push across that message?
I'm so glad you asked, Nick. I'm kidding. I hate these like cliche things, but it is so true when it's like, who's your audience? You know what I mean? Like, I think when we start out, especially when we're younger, we feel like, oh, I make a good wedding film, everyone will want to hire me, and then you learn that just like you and I, we have very different tastes and very different styles and cultures of what we're into and how we live our lives and how we celebrate. And so I think it's so important to figure out who is that person that you want to film their weddings? Like 2018, 2019, 2020, a handful of people in there I did not relate with. I can say with full confidence that probably 90% of my clients that I will shoot their wedding this year and next, we are very much on the same page. Like if I'm like, hey, take the champagne bottle, go pop it and chug it, like they'll do it. If they want to, if I'm like, let's jump in the pool with our tuxes on, like they're going to do it. They are very much so, like, I don't have to worry about the song choices I put on things, whether it's like classical music or it's black and white out of focus, or it's like twerking on the floor or hard hip hop, because those who are my clients are, and that's what I've built my aesthetic and my advertising and the stuff that I show, show what you want to shoot. Like it's so true. I have rules for myself when it comes to Instagram, like, and things that I try to show and not show, even though I'm really bad at being consistent on it. But even the little that I do be consistent, it makes a difference. And I think, not to get us off topic, but a lot of that I had to learn. A lot of that, like I knew what I liked. What I liked was classical music, black and white, very like European, slow styles. And then I liked the party. And so it's been a journey of learning how those meld together, from learning from different people, from taking risks in the films that I make, and and to kind of like finding those clients who are somewhere between luxury and party. I feel like what I want and what I try to manifest into my advertising and marketing and films is like, I use wild bespoke luxury. It's the non-traditional luxury weddings who party really hard. Like that's who my main client is. It's somebody who's spending a lot of money, but they're either self-made or their parents don't care what they do. And if they're somewhere in there, they're probably my client because they're willing to be different. And then to that point, talking about clients, like I cannot hit this enough. And we all do it when we start out. We like copy what other people do. I still do it. I saw some stuff come out today from films by Stanton. I used to follow Henry Martin a lot, other people. And I was like, I just want to make films like this. Mm-hmm. And so I would do that. And then as time goes by, it's like, well, they're already doing that. I need to do something that is me. And I feel like if you look at my stuff, at least when I look at it, I feel like it's me. Even if I do something different, even if I try a different style or a different thing, it still feels like me. Finally, it took me 4 years to feel that. But when I got there, it's very impactful, not only for myself, but people see it too. And I think that's super important.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know that, whenever people are starting out, then, everyone thinks, oh, this is my style or that's my style or, trying to figure it out or whatever. And it's sadly that's one of the downsides of doing this as a profession. There are very, very few people that from the very beginning, it's like they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing and they know how to film it and they know what to do. That's a very small percentage of people. There are so many of us as we are going along in here that it's like, man, I just don't. I'm going to shoot this luxury one, or I'm going to shoot this outdoor boho one, or this barn one, or, kind of whatever. And you're kind of looking for what you think. I remember in 2016, I rebranded. That was back when I was Nick Miller Films. And I made this logo. And for whatever reason, I thought that it looked kind of high end and luxury or whatever. But I make fun of it now because it's not really good. And I shot and I shot my first kind of higher end for me wedding. And halfway through the day, I was like, this is not what I want to do. And I had spent all of this money and rebranded myself as this is the direction we are going to go. And that totally was not what I wanted to do. And this is one of those things where as you're starting out, if you're in your first, couple years, you're like, I just don't know what my style is. That's okay. Hunter, you say you were what, 4 years in before you really figured out who you were as a filmmaker and what we were 6.5 years in before we really kind of figured out the type of stuff that we wanted to shoot in the direction that we wanted to go. So some of these things take time. And some advice we got from David Reynosa from Forestry Films when he was on the podcast a while ago was people wanting to go full time. He was like, if I could go back and do this, I would much rather take half of the weddings, but all of them be exactly what I want to be, rather than film a whole bunch of stuff and then put a bunch of stuff out there that isn't what I want to do. Because as soon as you put something out there that you don't want to do, you're going to get inquiries for that and people are going to hire you, and then you're going to have to shoot more of that stuff that you don't want to do. So it's a good recommendation to film as much as you can, but also have that in the back of your mind. Know that, okay, I'm looking for that thing that I really want to focus in on and I really want to vibe with their aesthetic. I'm using your words there for editing, vibe and aesthetic, as you are running as you're running your business. And I like what you said, how you're I love black and white and cinematic and orchestra. I love that kind of stuff, but also I like to party. And so you're finding this space where you're melding these two things together, which I think a lot of people are oh, I do this kind of wedding or that kind of wedding. And you're I'll do the fancy black tie. That's fine. But we better be jumping in that pool at the end of the night. I don't care as long as we're doing that kind of stuff. So,
I love that, man. I think that's so true. And Wild Oak is a great name, by the way. I love that.
Thank you. I think, as also the more I do this, I talk about, thinking about who my ideal client is or what my ideal client is. And, we like to say, this type of venue, and we kind of put it, or this type of wedding or that. And I think that the older I get and the more I do this is like, well, obviously there's certain things that I want, where I want to go. But if I connect with the person, like if I connect with a couple, like that other stuff doesn't matter near as much. If like we have this relationship and we're connecting, like that's what matters more. And like, who's my couple? Like it's the couple that values kind of what I value and, really wants us there. And we just have this great relationship. And so I think that you've really, with your posting and what you're putting out there, you have melded all of that stuff together, which is really, really cool. So good job.
I will say thank you. If I may.
You may. Yeah, I'll allow it.
Thank you, Nikolai. It takes a long time to get there, and I don't even feel like I'm there. I don't even feel like I've made it or whatever. I'm getting paid good money to shoot amazing weddings, to have a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, like, there's still ones that are like only halfway what I would love, but it's still better than it was 4 years ago. Sure. And I think the main thing is to just always be honest with yourself. I guess what I'm trying to say is this, like, when you figure out what it is you want to shoot, you got to try everything in the beginning. You got to taste all the flavors. You got to get the sample spoons and say like, oh, Rocky Road, I hate this. You got to try the different flavors. And then when you find out the flavors that you like, the things that you like don't be afraid. I think I don't know about everyone, but for me, it's a big fear thing. It was a big fear thing to hold out, to raise my prices, to only try to get these certain weddings, to say no to a wedding because it's at a barn. And to say, no, I'm going to hold out. I'm going to wait and not fear book weddings that are coming towards me and really try to get those weddings. Because when you pick a wedding that you don't really want, and I understand not all of us have that luxury, but when you get there, not only is it the day of that you're shooting it, inspiration is probably failing or it's harder to be inspired, it's having to edit it as well. It affects everything. And then you get inquiries for that thing. Thankfully, I love doing Indian weddings. Because I did one Indian wedding and now I get 1,000 inquiries for Indian weddings. Thankfully, I like them, but showing that stuff and putting it out into the universe, out into the world, like it just brings it back to you. So like once you know that, like the biggest advice I would give to somebody is just be very intentional in curating that and what you want. Exactly what you're saying, and I just think that's so important.
Another along those lines, also, if you're saying yes to a wedding that you don't really want to do at a venue that you don't really want to do, like you might be taking it away from someone who absolutely loves doing those kind of weddings. Like that's just another way to look at it. Again, I know that, there's all sorts of factors, coming into that, maybe you just,
we are the privileged ones,
right? Right. I'm not, some weddings are portfolio and some weddings are the paycheck, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We get that. But, if you continue to do these things, like, man, why do I keep getting these? Well, you keep saying yes to these kind of weddings. Maybe that's the reason that's happening with you. So I wanted to spend a few minutes because one thing that I've noticed about your work lately is specifically kind of your like hype Insta reels kind of thing, your Insta story kind of videos and that kind of stuff. And I just want you to talk a little bit about your process whenever you get to the editing side of thing. What are you thinking about? How are you leaning into the vibe, the aesthetic, that kind of stuff when it comes to your editing?
Oh, man, sometimes it's so freaking random. I think there's things that I know I like there's two things I really love. I love minor key piano or classical music on like really sweet BTS style looking shots of the couple, or it just gives you that like vibe feeling. I can't explain it. It's very, I don't know if you follow like publications like The Lane or old, like it feels like a French movie, like a black and white. Like that's what I like that. And then there's like the like hip hop or party music. Like I know I like those two things. So when I get back from a wedding, I always think to myself like, okay, what's kind of like an idea? And I always like to make something a little small after a wedding because it's something that I learned a long time ago. Do you know who Tyler Hennington is? I might be butchering his name. But like something that grew my business way back in the days, I used to do same day edits. And I learned that from him. in like 2018, I used to like during cocktail hour, make a little 1 minute thing, put it up on my laptop and show it. And people would be like, oh my God. And then I'd deliver their film 6 months later, you know, but I would book people and it was incredible. And so I've always kind of still kept that thing where it's like the day after, the night of, I go through my footage because A, I want to know that I did it well. And B, I just like to create a little something. And then I'll work on that, create that, put that out there. And it, you know, and people love it. It's fresh in their mind. And then also I can take my time, you know, getting them the rest of the stuff because I've already made them a little bit happy. Back to your question though, it's more so just about experiencing the day. And like, that's what I tell couples on the sales call. Like, if you look at my films, if you look at my work, it all feels a little bit different, though it still feels like me. And it's because this cheese alert, I'm experiencing your day and who you guys are. And I'm really doing my best to create a reflection of who you guys are. Like, I'm never going to choose a song or a style that I don't really feel like is that couple. But if the couple is like, even if it's black tie, classy, beautiful venue, and they're on the dance floor twerking and being crazy, then like, that's probably what it's going to be like. Because that's who they are. And if you do that, they'll be like, oh my God, that's us. And their friends will be like, oh my God, that's them. And it's very authentic and real. And that, I did a boat party in Lake Travis last Wednesday, fun. And I made a little video. Thanks, man.
Yeah, it was
really
fun.
They were I was in the van with the groom, and they were listening to Notorious B.I.G., you know, party and bullshit. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to use that song. And so it's like, it's just about having those moments and doing that. Like, I'll go through Music Bed and some others that shall not be named, and I will find, I'll go through and find songs as I'm looking for a song and be like, oh my God, that's a vibe, put that in there. Or that's party, put that in there. Or that's like cinematic build, like put that in there. But all of that to say, I'm usually trending in one of two areas, and it's like minor key classical or piano or like just straight up party, or I mold both of them. And because that's who my clients are. And so then I just kind of find that vibe within there. As far as like choosing shots and things like that, man, I feel like so much of it is just like in the moment. Like, I'll just look through the footage and be like, oh, I really like that. I really like, there's this thing I'm really enjoying lately, which is where people don't look like they're being directed. Like, if I just had the couple like walk together and just talking and enjoying themselves, like, I am loving stuff like that. There's a really good Russian company. I'm going to butcher their name. It's like Paramovia or Paranova or something. They're incredible. They do this incredibly. And I feel bad I butchered their name, but it's incredible stuff. And it just feels like a movie. Like, you know, like, as much as I do like the look away from the camera, look at the camera, I much more enjoy like them walking and then creating little teasers that include all that. Sorry, that was a lot. I rambled onto posing, but I hope that you glean something out of that.
Yeah. Yes. I really like what you said. And that's something that Jen and I in Wild Oak Films really try to do about, hey, we're here. We're trying to experience your day. You know, one of the questions whenever people ask us about music and like, do we get to pick your music? And I'm like, no. But part of that has to do, like, you guys, like, let's say, that Notorious B.I.G. is your favorite artist and you listen to him all the time and that's what you want. But then you have this elegant, classy, high end. And I'm not saying that you can't meld those two things together, but I'm just saying, like, the aesthetic that you picked, like, that says something about you as well, just as much as this music that you like listening to. And so sometimes whenever you're like, or, like maybe you really like, a real bluegrassy country kind of band, and, you have this, or maybe you like classical music, but you're having, a rustic outdoor, they might not meld together, right? These things might not go together. And so I say we're there experiencing the wedding, and we want to pick a music that reflects what we know about you, but also what your wedding day was like as well. And so we're kind of putting it all together and getting something out from it. So I really appreciate that. And I think that that's another step in customer service, but it's also a way that you can differentiate yourself and you can start, inching that price tag up a little bit. You say, hey, listen, I'm paying attention to you and I want to give you something that speaks to you. You know, it's the best compliment, I think, whenever someone's like, yeah, like that video really felt like who we are. Like that's our ultimate goal. Like that's what we want as filmmakers, is for people to have that kind of reaction to it.
Back to what you were saying about music. I just don't know if this will hit that hard, but it's the idea that, like, man, I can't feel this enough, that I'm not really even being hired to make wedding film as much as I am to be aware for my couple and like create an experience, not only on the day of, but like through the film. Like it's so much, I feel like what I've created in my business is so much more than like just making a wedding film. Like it's about building that relationship with my client. And look, I've shot the weddings where I'm the help, you know, and it's like it's like a $500,000 wedding and I'm basically the help who has to wear a certain thing that the planner asked me to wear. And sometimes it's worth taking those weddings, vendors, planner, venue, money, couple. Like if it's somewhere, two of those four, like I'm into it. But it's so much better when you get to have that connection with your clients. And like, I mean, I have a wedding in New York City coming up. Like I'll fly up and meet with them. I would go out and meet with clients and try to have those connections with them because it's so important to me. This is what I was going to say. And it's that.
I want to hear it.
Thank you. To your point, I had a client in Chicago, awesome client who's Jewish and like she's from a small knit community in North Shore, Chicago. And she reached out to me and it was definitely a red flag client. And what I mean by that is like, she reached out to me and she's like, hey, I really want you to do my wedding, but we need to talk on the phone and you're going to have to talk to my mom and my planner. And instantly I'm like, hell no. But she got me on the phone and she's like, look, our wedding's at the Four Seasons. Like, all the things are adding up. We love to party. And all I want is something different. Like all my friends, their moms hire the same planner, the same photographer, the same videographer, and all their films look the same. It's the drone shot into the father of the bride speech, into the dress shot. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but like she just really was so important to her to have something different, to have something that felt like her through my eyes. And man, as much as I was trying to sell her, she sold me. And I talked to her mom and I sold her mom on me. And I talked to her planner and ensured that I would wear a black tie outfit. Like all these things that where I'm at now in my business, like kill me. But at the end of the day, it was worth it because they were so grateful to have had somebody who they felt like were on their team, who was on their level and what they wanted. And I mean, that planner just sent me an awesome wedding out in Scottsdale. You know what I mean? So it's like, and yet there was a time, and I've known people who would have been like, nah, screw that. Not for me. And maybe it's not. But like, to me, there's no better thing, like you said, when they come to me and it's like, wow, this feels like us. Or we're so grateful that you were a part of this. You know what I mean? And like, you got to do this. And then it's also cool when you meet the drunk guest who's like, I didn't even see you take a picture all day. Yeah, because I was having a good time and I was taking pictures, video. But don't worry. Anyway, I think to me, that's like the most impactful thing is just, it feels bad when I can't be relational with a client. And not that's not something, it will happen again, but it's so important to me, maybe for my own insecurity, for whatever reason, but it just makes the experience so much better when it's so freaking cheesy, but like when, they start as your clients and they leave as your friends. But I love that. I feel that, and I think it makes better content.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can tell whenever people are comfortable with you, behind the camera, or, it comes out in the film. If they're comfortable with you, they're going to do a lot more, just act a little bit differently than they would if they were just like stiff and like, oh, there's a camera on me, I don't know this person or whatever. So man, Hunter, it's been so good hanging out with you this afternoon. I appreciate you taking the time. For people that don't follow you or anything and would like to just see some of your work and that kind of stuff, where can they do that?
TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Mainly I'm active on Instagram. I think that's where I put up my most stuff. That's where I spend the most time. come follow me at Hunter Floyd Films. Slide into my DMs, send me something. Send me a pic of what you're drinking. I don't know. Would love to hear from you. And, would love to see where other people are at on their journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time and hanging out with me today. Thanks, man.
I feel like we started as acquaintances and are leaving as friends.
As cheesy as it sounds, that's true. We are.
Oh, thanks, Nick. I appreciate it, man.
Hunter, again, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time. Listeners, if you are out there, we want you to join our Facebook group. And all you need to do is head over to howtofilmweddings.com/community. There, it will auto redirect you straight to our Facebook group. There, you can join the conversation. We have over 13,000 members of that are filmmakers that are wanting to learn, that want to improve, that want to get better. So that's howtofilmweddings.com/community. I appreciate you for listening. Thank you so much. And until next time, we will see you.
Are you looking for a better way to deliver your wedding films to your couples? Look no further. Our friends over at WedFlow provide the most flexible video delivery solution on the market. WedFlow is pay-per-project with no large upfront cost or commitment, and you can cancel anytime. Not only that, WedFlow offers a premium viewing experience for your couples, accessible on mobile, tablet, desktop, as well as their very own suite of TV apps. Each project comes with 10 years hosting and an experience for your clients that will blow them away. Stop delivering your films the old-fashioned way and give your couples something to rave about. Head on over to howtofilmweddings.com/wedflow to check out WedFlow today.